Okay, starting off today's show, we will be starting how we start every Tuesday episode of the Zach Kroll Sports Podcast, and that is with our 10 takeaways of the week. And it is nuts. We are already done with week 9. The season just continues to fly by. And really looking forward to talking about it with you guys today after a crazy, great, unreal week of football. So, without further ado, boys, hit the music. Let's get to it. Takeaway number 1. Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, the whole Buccaneers team should be absolutely ashamed of themselves because I think that loss on Sunday night against the New Orleans Saints was really a team effort. The Bucs were just no good all around, and we're going to get into a little later in the show who deserves, the specific blame and everything, but at the same time, it was an absolute ass whooping. We know that Todd Bowles could coach defense. We know that Tom Brady's a good quarterback. And to be honest, Bruce Arians' game plan was an absolute disaster. The Saints just blew them out. They were the better team. Tampa Bay ran the ball 5 times the whole game, and 4 of them were on run plays. And with the Buccaneers, it's concerning because this is now the second or third time this season where they've just played a lackluster, non-quality kind of football game. And if I'm a Buccaneer fan, that's a big, big concern. Since that Green Bay Packer game, when the whole NFL, including myself, I'm guilty of it, was hyping up the Buccaneers because of their defense, the Bucs defense really hasn't been good at all since that game. And really, on Sunday Night Football against the Saints, I think the Bucs kind of learned that everyone has a bad game, just like the Green Bay Packers did when they came to Raymond James Stadium. But for me, the main culprit of the loss is Bruce Arians. You're the head coach. You're responsible. Do better. Takeaway number 2. The Charger and Raider game went exactly how we expected. Justin Herbert played really well, but in the end, the Chargers lost a close game, and we've seen that many times before. And I do think it's obviously comparable. It's obviously fair to compare the Chargers and everything that has gone on with them to the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people are saying the Chargers are the AFC version of the Atlanta Falcons, and to be honest, I kind of agree because every close game they're in late, they find a way to lose. And Anthony Lynn, you gotta go. First off, how many times on 4th and 1 in situations where you should obviously be going for it does Anthony Lynn just punt the ball? It's 2020, bro. Get a grip. You have to be aggressive in order for your team to win. And if your team wins, 1 or 2 of these close games late, I get it. But over the past 2 or 3 years, how many times have the Chargers just been in a game like that they really should win? To me, they even looked like the better team. Justin Herbert, watching him make throw after throw after throw, I was watching that game and I was kind of like, you know what? I expect Justin Herbert to hit the game-winning touchdown here, even though he was freaking throwing to his third-string tight end, Bubba Parnum, and of course he drops it. That's the other thing. What is Anthony Lynn doing throwing back-to-back fades on 3rd and 4th down when you're in the red zone and you have one of the best route runners in the league in Keenan Allen, you have a good tight end in Hunter Henry, you have a big wide receiver in Mike Williams, and you're throwing to Donald Parham? And shocker, you lost the game because Donald made a drop. The Chargers deserve to lose, and a quick shout out to John Gruden and the Raiders. Derek Carr is having a phenomenal comeback season. I think he deserves a lot of credit. The Raiders are a good football team. Props for them going on the road and winning. Takeaway number 3. Dalvin Cook is in the MVP conversation. And what he did on Sunday against the Detroit Lions, again for the second straight week, was just super impressive. He was just running the ball right down their throats. And when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, very slowly but surely, you look at the NFC North standings. The Packers, they lost 2 weeks ago to Minnesota at home, and now with the Bears struggling, this Monday Night Football game next week between the Vikings and the Bears in Chicago, all of a sudden now is very interesting. I think I look at Minnesota right now, and I think I could see a low-ceiling playoff team. Obviously, they didn't start off the season very well at 3-5, losing game after game after game, but at least Mike Zimmer has his guys playing hard and playing for him. they knew it was going to take time for Justin Jefferson, the young rookie receiver from LSU, to come in and make an impact. They obviously lost Stephon Diggs as well. So I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for the Vikings. But look at their schedule, right? At Chicago, home Dallas, home Carolina, home Jacksonville. Those are the Vikings' next 4 games. If they could go 3-1 during that stretch, I think they could possibly be in a nice position to be that team that in the second half of the season could go on a nice run, especially with how they've been playing late. So watch out for the Minnesota Vikings. I'll give Mike Zimmer credit. There were many fans in Minnesota that were ready to fire him, and he does at least have his team playing for him, which not every coach in the NFL could say about themselves. And this Viking defense, if they could just play a little better, I think they'll always have a chance, because I think for the most part they're a well-coached team. They're also super young on defense. I think that unit is going to improve, and we'll see what Kirk Cousins could do. We'll see if Kirk Cousins could prove his worth when his team needs him the most. Takeaway number 4. I know I went on this show last week and said that Daniel Jones was not the quarterback of the future in New York for the Giants. But what I'll also say is this. I do think Joe Judge does have the New York Giants going in the right direction. And that was something that I couldn't say at all about Pat Shurmur during his tenure as head coach of the New York Giants. I think right now there are some comparisons that could be made to this Giant team and last year's Miami Dolphins. Because if you remember, both of those teams, obviously the record doesn't say much. They're 2-7. They have a first-year head coach. And all of a sudden now, I feel like the Giants, every game they're losing is at least close. And obviously we know it's all about wins in the end, but it could be much, much worse, especially when you look at some of the past regimes of the recent New York Giant coaches. The Giants' offensive line has been improved. Hopefully they could get the kid Andrew Thomas playing a little better. And then once they get Saquon back, once they could provide the quarterback with some weapons, maybe they got something here. I know he doesn't have the best group of position players around him, does Daniel Jones, especially with Saquon Barkley being hurt. But I don't know, man. I'm going to be very fascinated to see. I know right now the Jaguars are in position to have the number 2 overall pick, but I would look at the situation right now with the Giants and just say, all right, look, we may be 2-7, but we're competitive in basically every game. Our offensive line is at least improving, and our star running back is hurt. Daniel Jones also didn't turn the ball over on Sunday against the Washington football team, which is a really good sign going forward. So if I'm Joe Judge and I'm the New York Giants, I just want to see games like that on Sunday against Washington. You could see that the Giants players at least like to play for him. And this was a guy that many people were skeptical of when he first got the job, considering he was a special teams coach in New England that no one has really ever heard of. So I do think Joe Judge has the Giants going in the right direction, which I could never have said about any other New York Giants coach. Takeaway number 6. I'll give the Baltimore Ravens some love. It's never easy to go on the road and beat a tough Indianapolis Colts team, especially when they were losing at the half. And if you watched, that was actually the first time in his career that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have won a game when trailing at halftime that he started at quarterback. And if you're the Ravens, I think there are a couple ways you could look at it, right? Number 1, you could say, yeah, we just had a tough loss to Pittsburgh at home, and then we go on the road to a tough team in Indy who could be a playoff team. We're down at half and came away with the win. I understand that argument, and I'm not saying it's not true, but at the same time, I don't think the game yesterday with the Ravens really changed my opinion on them at all. Their offense was awful in the first half and really couldn't get anything going. And if you watch the game, I think the direction of that game changed when the refs called Marcus Peters for that pick. He even knew that it wasn't an interception, and they still gave the Ravens a pick, and I think the game just changed dramatically from there. The Ravens, if they could beat good teams, I'm not saying they can't, but if they're down in a game, it's going to be hard for them to execute. And when they're playing some of the other stud quarterbacks in the league, like Pat Mahomes, like a Russell Wilson, like an Aaron Rodgers, it's just hard for me to see them be able to come back and get the job done. Good job by Lamar Jackson coming back on the road against a good Indianapolis Colts defense, but let's face facts. He was doing it against Phillip Rivers. We all know Phillip Rivers wasn't going to be able to outscore Lamar Jackson. So I'll give Lamar Jackson props for illustrating the comeback, but I'm just going to let it be known clear that doesn't really change my expectations for him or what the Ravens will possibly do going forward. Takeaway number 6. Christian McCaffrey, Matt Rule, and the Carolina Panthers have a very, very bright future. I loved just how aggressive Matt Rule was with his play calling on Sunday for the Panthers. This guy was just going all out on trying to win the game, and when you're a team like Carolina playing in that kind of spot on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs, I think in order for your team to have a chance to win, that's what you got to do. The Panthers really came out and controlled tempo in the first half. They even had a 10-plus point deficit lead for the Chiefs, and when you look at Carolina, I loved how they were so aggressive in this game. Teddy Bridgewater was running on 4th and 12, sacrificing everything. Keep in mind, this is a guy whose leg almost fell off due to injury, and he's still out here sacrificing his body for his team and the will to win, because that's what it's going to take for a team like Carolina to beat a team like Kansas City. And when you're Carolina, that's something to me that shows they want to play for their coach. They care for Matt Rule. And I think if you give him just a little bit of time with McCaffrey, with DJ Moore, and maybe a pick to develop at quarterback, then the Carolina Panthers are going to have a bright, bright future. And I think I would put them in the category of the best, worst team in the NFL. I think we all know the Carolina Panthers are not a playoff team, but I do think they're not the Jets. They're not the Giants. They're not even the 49ers when they're banged up. They're not the Jaguars. They're a significant level above that, and I do give Matt Rule and his staff a lot of credit. Hopefully, if you're a Carolina Panther fan, Joe Brady will be back next year, because the more and more I watch that offense play, I just have a feeling that there's a good chance he's going to be a head coach next year, because, man, that dude knows how to run an offense. Takeaway number 7. The Chicago Bears should be ashamed of themselves. And I feel like with Chicago, there's been a lot of debate, right, on who should get the blame. Should it be Matt Nagy? Should it be Nick Foles? Should it even be Mitch Trubisky? Should it be Ryan Pace? And how about this? It is just a collective failure. Scoring points on offense should not be this hard. And I don't care who's at quarterback. I thought Nick Foles was going to be all right. I thought he was going to be a game manager. I just didn't expect the Bears' offensive line, and I know they're banged up, but good God, the whole offensive unit across the board has to be better. They cannot run the ball whatsoever. And when you want Nick Foles to be your quarterback, and you want him to do well, and you want to succeed, if you don't have a running game, that has no chance of happening. And when you look at Matt Nagy, I liked him, especially after his first year and everything he did in Chicago. But when you look at other teams across the league, they aren't having this much difficulty scoring. Oh yeah, especially against the Titan defense that going into this game, the previous 2 weeks had been giving up 60% of a successful rate on 3rd down, and the Bears couldn't score at all in this game. I said they should make a trade for a quarterback at the deadline, and I still think that does apply. I don't understand why Ryan Pace couldn't redeem himself by trading for a Ryan Fitzpatrick or trading for a Gardner Minshew, because right now the Chicago Bears quarterback position and whole offense really is an abject failure. And the pathetic thing is, somehow, some way, they're still in the race to get to the playoffs in the NFC. But man, the more and more I watch this Bears team, they could be in big trouble. And Chicago next week has a big game at home on Monday Night Football, no less, against the Minnesota Vikings. We spoke about Minnesota earlier. I'm actually looking forward to that game. I'm curious to see who wins, but right now I think you'd have to give the edge to the Vikings, because it's hard to have confidence in the Bears. Takeaway number 8. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills and the Seattle Seahawks, because I know everyone who listens to this show wants my opinion on that game, and we're going to get into it a little more in depth later in the show. But here's what I'll say. Josh Allen deserves credit. He played great. That was one of probably the best game I've seen him play. But anyone who is telling me that game should change my opinion on the Buffalo Bills, I just don't think they're paying attention, because hear me out. My concern with the Buffalo Bills has always been, okay, do I think they're a playoff team? Probably. I know I'm high on the Miami Dolphins, and I think ultimately Josh Allen, is not the quarterback I want. But I do think, looking at Buffalo, if they do play at the level like they did on Sunday, they should be a playoff team. And if things do go right for them, they should win the AFC East. I get that. But let's be honest here. The Seattle Seahawks defense is a middle school defense. That is an awful, awful unit. Jamal Adams comes back and is already yelling at Pete Carroll, and Josh Allen played well. He lit them up. But people saying that is going to change their opinion on the Buffalo Bills, I just don't think that's right, because we saw what Josh Allen could do in a big game against Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not taking Allen over Mahomes in any big game, no matter who's playing defense, who's playing offense, where the game is. No, it's never happening. And yesterday, Russell Wilson had a pretty big impact on why the Seahawks lost the game. I hate to say it, but it's true. 5 turnovers, sacked 5 times. If you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, that can't happen. I'll give credit to the Bills, and their offense looked fine, but I still can't see them doing that against an elite team. And Seattle, they're not an elite team right now, because their defense could be the worst defense I've ever seen. I don't think there's any doubt they're the worst defense in the league right now, but they could be the worst defense in the league. And to be honest, I'm still not sure how Ken Norton Jr. still has a job. Takeaway number 9. We're going to talk a little bit about the MVP coming up later in the show and who my vote would be for right now at the halfway point in the season. But let me say this. He will win the award, but Ben Roethlisberger of the Pittsburgh Steelers personifies everything that an MVP is. The Pittsburgh Steelers last year went 8-8. They won 8 games, and through 8 games this year, with Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback, how many wins do the Steelers have? That's right, 8. The numbers may not tell you this, but Ben Roethlisberger as a leader is just such a valuable player. Yesterday, the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's face it, if you've listened to the show, you know what I'm going to say. I thought yesterday had the chance to be a Mike Tomlin special for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you're asking, Zach, what's a Mike Tomlin special? A lot of people think I'm crazy because I don't think Mike Tomlin is an elite coach. And the reason why I say that is because not only throughout the last 10 years has he had just a boatload of talent that hasn't been able to win big games, but at the same time, they've had many disappointing efforts going on the road as a big favorite, kind of in a similar spot like they did on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, and there have been plenty of chances where they could lose. You remember they had a game in Oakland a couple years ago when the X-ray broke in the locker room and when Big Ben got hurt? It's kind of like that. And looking at Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger on one leg really carried the Steelers in the second half to victory. I totally understand it was against the Dallas Cowboys, who are not a good team, and the Steelers should have blown them out. But if this win shows me anything about the Steelers, it's that this Steeler team could overcome that adversity that they faced. In a normal season, they lose that game. But nah, this team is very good. They come up with the win over Dallas. And I'm not convinced that they could beat Kansas City right now, but I still am convinced that they provide the Chiefs with the biggest threat. And finally, takeaway number 10, I think on Sunday, watching Miami and Arizona, that could have been the best game I've watched all season. Watching Tua and Kyler Murray go head-to-head was absolutely phenomenal. And it was funny because looking at Kyler in this game, I know most people are going to be more impressed with Tua because the Dolphins won and he played well, especially after not playing great last week. But Kyler Murray just torched a very good Dolphin defense that makes plays. They had a turnover for a touchdown early in the game, and I think Kyler Murray deserves a lot of credit. In terms of Arizona, I think they're good. I think they're a playoff team, but I think that I can't take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender just because a Super Bowl contender would find a way to win a game like that at home against a rookie quarterback. But at the same time, that doesn't diminish any credit I'll be giving the Miami Dolphins. That was a phenomenal game. Brian Flores is a top 8 head coach in the league. He would have my vote for NFL Coach of the Year right now. And once again, the Dolphins have done a really good job developing young skill position players to play with Tua. He's already got the chemistry with Devontae Parker, already got it with Preston Williams. Miami is missing Myles Gaskin in this game, and still they're just finding ways to win, and they are right in the race for the AFC East title. Tua really showed me that he can make so many different throws all across the board that, to be honest, some people were overreacting last week against the Rams. And, I don't want to say I was overreacting, but I'm definitely feeling much better about Tua this week than I was last week. And I wasn't trying to overreact to that first game, but that was just a phenomenal coaching effort, phenomenal game plan by the Miami Dolphins, and they deserve a lot of credit. It's one thing to, beat the Jets of the world, but the fact that they went into San Francisco and won, they beat the Rams at home, and then they go into Arizona and win, phenomenal effort from the Dolphins.